our Tariqah al-Naqshbandiyyah al-Aliyah. It is the best of the Sufi ways which reaching the one to the divine presence of Allah Almighty, to be busy with the holy lights of the holy essence of Allah Almighty, and to be all the time in the divine presence of Allah Almighty. And for this it is based on Suhbah. Suhbah is like advice, but without any force. Only the one who wants to do can do by it. The one who doesn't want to do also, basically everyone has free will to do or not to do. And for this, our way is a Suhbah, like because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam chose Suhbah instead of advice, and for this they call all the companions of Rasulullah, Sahabati Rasulullah, from the Suhbah, because they were following in companionship with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He didn't make himself as a teacher on them or as a Shaykh on them or forcing them to be under his orders. No. He said, me and all of you, my companion, we are under the orders of Allah Almighty. Only we follow and worship Allah Almighty. And Allah appointed me as a Rasul, as a Prophet, as an Imam, to connect you with the divine presence of Allah Almighty. Not to worship me or to follow me, to obey me according to what Allah Almighty ordering. If I will say something which Allah not saying, don't follow. Follow what Allah Almighty say. And for this Allah Almighty praising Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and was saying in Surah Al-Nisa, in the Holy Quran, وَكَفَى بِاللَّهِ شَهِيدًا, Allah Almighty by himself witnessing. وَكَفَى بِاللَّهِ شَهِيدًا مَنْ يُطِعَ الرَّسُولَ فَقَدْ أَطَاعَ اللَّهَ. The one who obey my beloved sealed of Prophet Rasulullah, he is really indeed obeying me. Because never Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam give from himself to anyone, always following the revelation, the wahy of Allah Almighty, and according to it, he used to order the Sahaba, the companion, and for this he told them, I am not to teach you, I am only to remember you by your eternal teaching from Allah Almighty, and to be in companionship with you, so that you will be practicing with me, making the dhikr of Allah Almighty with me, and in companion in this way, guiding us, Allah Almighty, in His way, so that at the end, by the Imamiyya of Rasulullah, because He is the Allah appointing him the Imam for all children of Adam alayhi salam, how about his nation and his companions, Sahaba. By the Imamiyya of Rasulullah, you will be well connected with Allah Almighty. Because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, as Allah Almighty saying in the Holy Quran, قُلْ إِنَّمَا أَنَا بَشَرٌ مِثْلُكُمْ, I am like you human, but not like you also. Because I have a revelation, I have a connection with heavens. إِنَّمَا يُوحَى إِلَيْهِ إِنَّمَا أَنَا بَشَرٌ مِثْلُكُمْ يُوحَى إِلَيْهِ. I have faith with Allah Almighty, and I have faith with you. I have all the time well connected with the divine presence of Allah Almighty, and also I am facing you in the meantime. So anyone who is facing me, I am connecting him to Allah Almighty. If he accepts me, if he doesn't accept me, like the unbeliever, they saw Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, an orphan, a human being like them, nothing different from them, eating, drinking, sleeping. They say, why to follow? Why to believe in him? And he's like us, a human being. We are not seeing any revelation, which he said. We are not seeing like this or that, because they saw Rasulullah in their eyes as if a common one like them. But really Allah Almighty saying he is not like you. Even his physical elements of his physical body is totally different. They are elements from the lights of Allah Almighty, while your elements is from the ground, from the sand of this earth. Your element from this planet, while the elements of Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam from heavenly elements, from the divinely godly ocean of lights of Allah Almighty. And for this, he was the only one can be ascending in Mi'raj to meet Allah Almighty, and he said, I saw Allah Almighty by the eyes of Allah Almighty. He didn't say I saw them by my eyes, by my physical body eyes, no. Because his physical body is not like our physical body. His physical body is elements of it. Allah created him from the divine ocean of lights, godly lights of Allah Almighty from heavenly creation. And so he was able to see by his eyes, by the eyes of Allah Almighty, Allah Almighty. And for this he said, I never make Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu, Rasulullah make him to be reaching that whenever he makes sujood, he said, never I do a sujood to an unseen God. Always I am saying, he reached to me finishing his humanity and only the lights of Allah Almighty to be existing in him. And by the eyes of Allah Almighty, of this lights which is created from him, Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu was able to make sujood and to see Allah Almighty. And like this, awliyaullah now, because no more there is companion, Sahaba, no more there is Prophet, sealed of Prophet Sayyidina Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And so now awliyaullah, they are inheriting the secrets of Sahabati Rasulillah, of Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu, Sayyidina Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhu, whom they are inheriting the secret of sealed of Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, are the only one whom can connect anyone who believe in them and he follow them, and he will be in their way which they already ascend and have their own mi'raj to the divine presence of Allah Almighty, and Allah sending them and Rasulullah back to bring anyone who likes, not obligatory, the one who likes to be reaching to the divine presence of Allah Almighty, to lead him and to guide him in the way of Allah Almighty, without making themselves teacher on him, or forcing him, or ordering him, or insulting him, or scolding him. But the awliyaullah always must be the humble one, reach in humbleness, like Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He used to sleep on a mattress full with sand until the sand was making on his body scratches and the sign of sand on his body, or on the body of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He was so humble that never said to anyone who did something wrong, why you did like this? Never saying to anyone, do or not to do. Everyone, Allah saying in the Holy Quran, and he is following Rasulullah, is free, no obligatory in Islam. Everyone is free, has free will. Allah created him. He can choose whatever he wants. But he must know that one day he is going to meet Allah Almighty by death. He will die. And he is going to meet Allah Almighty and to be buried in this hole, in this grave, darkened grave, where it is the box, the hole of your deeds. If you were in goodness in this life, you are going to be rewarded by goodness. And if you were in badness, you are going to be rewarded also with badness from Allah Almighty. This is the first step. Then how about Day of Judgment, when you are going to meet and to see Allah Almighty, and Allah to question you for every tiniest deeds to the greatest deed which you have did, and He will balance them, Allah Almighty. How you think And so this Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, balance yourself, because before to you be balanced by Allah Almighty. Every one of us knows himself and what between him and Allah Almighty, and what he is doing, if good or bad, everyone knows better anyone to interfere in him and to teach him or to tell him. If you are doing well and good, say Alhamdulillah. This is blessing from Allah Almighty. If you are doing badly with Allah Almighty, then repent, ask tawbah and istighfar from Allah Almighty. And like this, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did as the Sufi ways, especially the Naqshbandiyya Aliyya way, as in companionship between the ones whom they like to be, driving or walking in the ways reaching to Allah Almighty and to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to be in companionship with awliyaullah, so that they can be able to connect them with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then Rasulullah will take them as spiritual companion, and he will be in companionship with them to connect them with the divine presence of Allah Almighty, and to reach to be in two bows or less, making sujood between the hands of Allah Almighty. Like this, the Sufi ways, and for this it is based mostly on the Suhbah, because the Suhbah, the companionship, will show you all your spiritual sickness, all your spiritual sins and mistakes and badness, without anyone telling you you are doing bad or wrong. Only from the companionship with awliyaullah, they will be like a mirror for you, reflecting on you their lives, and in this life you can see how much you are well, good or bad with Allah Almighty. You know, everyone can judge himself before Allah Almighty to judge him. Everyone can question himself before Allah Almighty to question him. But no one can question another. Only Allah will question everyone. And so for this, the awliya never giving advice or orders, because if you don't do by the advice or fulfill the order, you will be punished by Allah Almighty. You will be even sent to bad end from this life. And for this you see Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in all his life. Read history, read the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Any time Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he called azan by himself. Think it well. Any hadith coming, or any Sahaba informing, or anyone informing that once Rasulullah in his life called azan, which we call for 5 prayers, he used to tell his Bilal al-Habashi, call azan. Or someone else, if Sayyidina Bilal sometimes was not available, some other Bilals to call azan. And never Rasulullah calling azan. Why? Because if Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam called the azan, and some of the Sahaba of the nation who hear the azan of Rasulullah, and they were lazy or late or not obeying to come and to pray, Allah Almighty will be punishing them by hell, by Jahannam. And Rasulullah is the most merciful, Allah sending him to mercy people, not to be the one who punished people by him. And for this never he called azan, because it will be obligatory on everyone. When Rasulullah say hayya ala salah, just they must leave everything and to be in between the hand of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam represent Allah Almighty, represent the divine presence of Allah Almighty. He is the Rasul of Allah Almighty. He is the Prophet of Allah Almighty. He is the representative of Allah Almighty for all prophets, for all creation and children of Adam alayhi salam. If he make any order and not fulfill, then the one whom is not fulfilling, he will have bad end. And for this, the awliya always will say to everyone, especially high-level awliya, high-ranks awliya, they don't interfere in anyone. Anyone asking them for something, they will tell him, you are free, whatever inspiration coming to your heart, do. Because if they order him and he didn't do by what they told him to do, then he will be failing and he will be sentenced to bad end by Allah Almighty, as if he is disobeying Allah Almighty, disobeying Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And for this, all awliyaullah, mostly the high ranks of awliya, even the small ranks of awliya, always keep themselves not to be followed by anyone, to be running away from anyone who wants to love them and to be connected with them, because they only are ones whom they want to connect people with Allah Almighty and with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, not to be ones whom people connecting themselves with them. As Allah Almighty saying in the Holy Quran, لعن الذين كفروا من بني إسرائيل على لسان داود وعيسى ابن مريم اتخذوا أحبارهم ورهبانهم أربابا من دون الله. Allah Almighty saying in the Holy Quran, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the Holy Ayat, that the one whom they were converted to kufr as an unbeliever of children of Israel, they were cursed by the tongue of Sayyidina Dawood alayhi salam and by the tongue of Sayyidina Isa. لعنوهم, they cursed them and Allah cursing them. Why? Because they took their priests and their rabbi to be worshipped instead of Allah Almighty. They replaced their priests, they replaced their imams, they replaced their rabbis to be worshipped instead Allah Almighty to be worshipped. And instead to follow the prophets of Allah Almighty, they used to kill the prophets of Allah Almighty. They used to be enemy to some of the prophets, some of them they would be friendly with them. Always splitting the believers, making some prophets to be disobeyed and to be killed, and making some of them to be respected, and they will be in between the people going and saying, don't follow this prophet, is a liar, follow that one, don't follow that, follow that, this one kill him, like did the priest and the rabbi. As nowadays happening in our Sufi ways and in our ulama, between our ulama, from the jealous of each other, from the hatred of each other, from the enmity of each other, they are making all the nation to lose their iman and to lose their faith by worshipping Allah Almighty, by taking their shuyukh to be replaced by Allah Almighty. Instead to worship Allah Almighty, they are worshipping their shuyukh. The priest and the rabbi, they came to Rasulullah when this ayat descended on Rasulullah, and they told him, Ya Rasulullah, never. We ask the people to worship us. They don't worship us. We are telling them to worship Allah Almighty. He told them, you are worshipped and you are cursed by the tongue of Dawood alayhi salam and Isa alayhi salam and all the prophets, because you making laws and orders on your people totally not the same which Allah Almighty descending on the Holy Bible or Torah. You are changing and you're making them to follow your new teaching, your new laws, your new information, and you're giving them orders, and Allah Almighty telling you, don't give orders. Only Allah will give orders to Prophet, and the Prophet will be in companionship with his people to teach them or to learn them what Allah Almighty wants from them to do. But you are making them to be either to obey your order, or they will be kicked out from the church or from the synagogue. And the same nowadays, all the awliya never doing like this. The awliya so humble, so open heart for everyone, never splitting anyone, never touching anyone, never hurting anyone, never also interfering in anyone or giving order or forcing anyone. All what they do, they will say you are free. What coming inspiration to your heart do by it? So that they will not be replaced by Allah Almighty. And if an awliya give an order, for example, and this order coming to him from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, from Allah Almighty, and the one of us will not fulfill it and do it by it, Allah will be announcing war against this one, and He will punish him by bad and unsuccessful life. He will give him suffering and bad time. And for this you must be very careful that awliya or shuyukh or meaning awliyaullah, if you want to take them imams for you, you must know that they are only imams for you, leading you as a companionship to reach you, by following them to reach you to be connected with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Rasulullah, he is the one who can connect you with the divine presence of Allah Almighty. And for this, be careful not to be cursed like the priests and rabbis of children of Israel, by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, by Malaika, by Allah Almighty, to curse you if you want to be interfering or splitting or believing by some prophets and not other prophets, believing by some awliya, refusing other awliya, following some awliya, not following other awliya. You have nothing to do between awliya Allah Azza wa Jalla. You have nothing to do between the ones who related to Allah Almighty. You must always keep yourself well behaved all the time, not in between the hands of awliya or ulama, but keep yourself always behaved well in the divine presence of Allah Almighty. Any one of us is not every less than a second in the divine presence of Allah Almighty, who is giving you life, who is making you to breathe, who is giving you mind to think, and who is giving you tongue to talk. Is not Allah Almighty? Who created you? Is not Allah Almighty? Which means Allah Almighty also saying that I am so close to you, that your soul to your body. And for this you always must be in good behavior with Allah Almighty, and not to worship or to replace Allah Almighty by anyone else. You see the Sahaba, how much the companion of Rasulullah, how much they used to love Rasulullah, how much they used to respect Rasulullah, how much they used to be under the order and the feet of Rasulullah. Never you heard any one of them worship Rasulullah. Anytime Rasulullah ordered them to worship him, not by worshiping to pray to him, but anytime Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam even forcing them, ordering them to do something, and Allah Almighty telling him, don't order them by anything, only order yourself, my beloved Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and make this on yourself to do it. If they like to follow, they are free. If they don't like to follow, they are free. Don't order them. And this is Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. How nowadays, and you say they are awliya, ordering people to follow or not to follow, splitting the communities, splitting the nation of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they say they are awliya or they are ulama, while never you see an awliya will replace himself by Allah Almighty to be worshipped, or replace himself by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but he will say, I am the most worst in between you, to guide you and to connect you with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because Allah blessed him and Rasulullah by a secret from Allah Almighty, by a secret from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Why? Because his heart built up to be house for Allah Almighty. No hatred, no proudness in his heart. And Allah Almighty saying, even one tiny atom of proudness in a heart, never that one will enter the Jannah of paradise. Paradise cannot tolerate one who has even a tiny atom of proudness in his heart. See nowadays how much we have mountains of proudness in our heart. How much we are seeing that ourselves so important, and as if we are less than Allah Almighty by one step or two steps. Even some, they will say, make themselves equal to awliyaullah, to Sahaba, to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. How they are going to meet Allah Almighty, and Allah saying, هل جزاء الإحسان إلا الإحسان. Goodness will be rewarded by goodness. Allah is going to question everyone. Because proudness only for Allah Almighty, and the bad will be rewarded by badness from Allah Almighty. Be careful. If you want to be in the way of awliyaullah, if you are not able to give respect and to be sincere in this way, better not to enter this way. Then you are not responsible. For example, there is 6, 7, 8 billions of population. The one who not following awliyaullah, they considered as common people, common nation, they are not responsible for anything. Even Allah Almighty will forgive them and not questioning them as He questioned the ones whom they want to follow awliyaullah and to be hypocrite in this way. And for this, the hypocrite between the companion of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what Rasulullah, Allah Almighty telling him in the Holy Quran, إِنَّ الْمُنَافِقِينَ فِي الدَّرَكِ الْأَسْفَلِ مِنَ النَّارِ. He didn't say, I am rewarding the hypocrite by entering them Jannah or forgiving them. No forgiveness for them, no mercy for them, and they are going to be under the feet of kafir, of non-believer in Jahannam, in the lowest, deepest valley of Jahannam, under the feet of the non-believer, under the feet of the kafirs in Jahannam. And the same in the way of awliyaullah, the one who wants to be in this way, and he wants to be hypocrite in this way, to be munafiq in this way, he is going to have the same as the munafiq in times of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Be careful either to follow and to be sincere and good behavior and good respecting and good adab, or don't enter into Sufi ways, because you will be then under the responsibility of punishment from Allah Almighty. In time of a grand Shaykh called Sayyidina Yusuf al-Hamazani radiallahu anhu, one of our Imams from the 40 or 41 or 42 grand Shaykhs in the Naqshbandiyya Aliyya way, in his time he was visiting Baghdad, Iraq, and at that time the Islamic school teaching Sharia was there, and 3 of the students, they say they heard that a big Sultan of Awliya, House of Awliya, he is now available in Baghdad. And they say, we must go and visit him, but we want to test him. The first one, he said, I am going to test him by a question, never he can answer it from Sharia. The other one, he said, I am going to ask him also a question which never coming to his imagination. The third one, he said, no, only I will go to give respect, to get blessing for him, I kiss his hand and feet, and be sincere and respecting him. And so before they arrived to the Zawiyah of Sayyidina Yusuf al-Hamazani, he was making Suhbah for thousands of people, his murids. All of a sudden he disappeared from between the crowd. Then he come back, then he disappeared, then he come back, then he disappeared, then he come back. When he get upset like this, he has miracles Sayyidina Yusuf al-Hamazani. The murid, they knew at that time something bad is going to happen. just appeared at the end. The knock of the Zawiya was knocking, and they opened. There were these three boys coming, student of Sharia. Sayyid Yusuf al-Ramazani told the first one by his name. Your question is like this, and the answer of this is like this, and you are going to get married by a princess of a Christian sultan king, and he is going to make you to be in the way of kufr, of Christianity, and you are going to have a bad end because you are coming to test me. But the second one, and what happened to him like this, the second one, he told him, you are going to serve a godless one who rise up swine and pigs, and he is going to make you cleaning them between their waist and to eat from their meat, and to take all your memory, what you memorize from the Holy Quran, and also you will go to the bad end, and the same happened to him. For the third one will say, I am coming only to get blessing and respect and not interfere in anything this awliya will say except to be respecting and sincere with him. He told him, my son, I am going to make you the Ghawth al-A'zam of your time, and your foot will be over all the necks of all the awliya Allah. All the necks of awliya Allah will be under your feet. And was that one Sayyidina Abdul Qadir al-Jailani Qaddasallahu. Like this, if you want to be sincere with awliya Allah, enter into Sufi ways. If you want to be not differentiated between them, respecting them, enter this way. The ways of Sufi ways. If you are not able, and your shaitan and your ego much more powerful on you than your soul and your spirituality, don't enter. Be a common one, so that you will not be responsible or questioned by Allah Almighty, or Allah Almighty will be sending you to bad end and to make you to lose your iman, because you were announcing war against one of awliyaullah. And Allah Almighty saying in the holy hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, "Man aada li waliyan faqad adantuhu bil haqq." The one who will unrespect or harm one of my awliya, I will announce war against him, and I will punish him and send him to hell and bad end. May Allah forgive us and mercy us. إلى شرف النبي سيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وآله وصحبه، وإلى أستاذنا وأستاذ الأستاذ وصديقيون لله تعالى الفاتحة. نوينا ختم قول الآن.